You have, of course, what's happening in Europe, which we can move on to now. Sanctuary cities throughout Europe, which have accepted millions of Muslim migrants. Well, what do you know? They're now erupting into riots, violent attacks on reporters while people chant Allah Akbar. This is what has happened in France, which has the highest Muslim population in Europe. Everywhere that Islamic ghettos exist, you have high crime, high rates of sexual assault, you have violence, you have riots, because multiculturalism has failed. It doesn't work. Bringing in huge numbers of people who aren't integrated and don't want to integrate and housing them in these high-rise, hopeless ghettos only leads to violence and unrest. How many times do we need to see it before we reverse this policy? It happened back in 2005 in Paris. It's happening right now. And you can go ahead and roll the clip of these riots as they've been unfolding over the past few nights. The UK Express reports Paris erupts in violence, many streets and no-go zones as 5 suburbs in flames. Again, I looked into the areas in which this was taking place. It's suburban areas in northern Paris. And what do you know? Population 33% Muslim. Again, just a coincidence. Police in Paris are struggling to cope with the fallout from a plague of riots which have kicked off in the city's northern suburbs. 5 large areas have been reduced to no-go areas for the past 5 nights as masked men cause mayhem on the streets. Now, remember that after the Paris attacks, people were criticized, people were publicly shamed for even claiming that there were Muslim no-go ghetto areas in Paris. That was a conspiracy theory back as little as 18 months ago. Well, look what's happening now. Residents have been on lockdown as armed police try to tackle the rioters, who have caused millions of pounds of damage. Again, they were the thing that sparked this, and it never takes much to spark it, was the alleged mistreatment and rape of a suspect by police. They responded by burning down their own community, by attacking TV reporters, cars set on fire, numerous different districts in Paris affected. And it centers on the horrific police brutality alleged in a housing estate called Rosé de Vent, which is known locally as the City of 3,000. Again, they build these huge, horrible ghetto towers, which are designed, physically designed to encourage crime, to encourage unrest, to encourage hopelessness, fill them with immigrants from Islamic countries who aren't integrated, have no interest in integrating, and then they act surprised at what happens. These are the fruits of multiculturalism. These are the fruits of sanctuary cities. The article continues, local residents and police forces have called the continued unrest disgraceful, while the man allegedly assaulted by police named only as Theo has pleaded for calm. So even the guy who was allegedly raped by police is telling them to stop. Yves Lafarbe, head of the police union, said, quote, setting a wheelchair van on fire is a disgrace. This has to stop. So again, they attack police, they attack firemen, they attack ambulance workers, they set wheelchair vans on fire. What on earth has that got to do with the mistreatment, alleged mistreatment of one individual? No justification whatsoever. The French government's response to the latest outbreaks of violence is to put 2,600 cameras on police officers to record them out on the job. So France's socialist government is more concerned about police brutality than the fact that areas of Paris are literally being burned to the ground right now. But that's the main concern, is documenting what the police are doing. Last night it was claimed, well, it wasn't claimed, I've seen the video, I've heard it. It was claimed rioters shouted Allah Akbar during violent protests in Paris where a car was set on fire. And again, the areas in which these riots are happening are at least 33% Muslim, probably more in most cases. Front National MP Marion Le Pen, who is the daughter of Marine Le Pen, or the niece, tweeted the amateur video which shows chaotic scenes, including clouds and smoke after cars were set on fire and a man yelling Allah Akbar, Arabic for God is greatest, 3 times. So each time Paris experiences more of these scenes, more of these cars being torched, police, ambulance workers, firemen, reporters being attacked in these immigrant suburban areas, the more votes captured by Marine Le Pen. which is what they're worried about, because several of the other candidates in the French presidential election, which is coming up first round, I believe, at the end of next month, they're all mired in scandal. Le Pen is going to win the first round. Of course, the way it's set up in France, the renegade candidate can never truly capture victory because they all pile in for the establishment candidates in the second round. But again, they're still intensely worried about Marine Le Pen winning the election, which is why George Soros is now funding Google to stop populist Le Pen. This is an article up on Infowars.com by Jerome Corsi. Though largely not reported by the mainstream media, George Soros has invested in Google as it stepped up its fake news campaign designed to depress the vote of anti-globalist Marine Le Pen. Isn't it interesting that fake news only ever benefits candidates who oppose the globalists and who oppose the establishment? Isn't that interesting? Could it be that this fake news scandal has been completely contrived as part of an effort to censor and crush support for those anti-globalist candidates? Gee, I wonder. In every single country in which these anti-globalist candidates are performing well, whether it be Marine Le Pen in France, Geert Wilders in Holland, or any other European country, they cite fake news. They say we need to censor, quote, fake news because these populists are just getting too successful. Of course, the Stanford University study, which came out a couple of weeks ago, confirmed that fake news had no impact whatsoever on the US presidential election. Completely debunked, done, narrative dead. Quietly, they just glossed over that article, and still this entire fake news narrative remains part of the mainstream media narrative, even though provably, manifestly, fake news did not win the election for Donald Trump. Had no impact whatsoever. Stanford University study admits it. But now George Soros is funding this first draft technology company, which again is working with Facebook in France to try and censor content that's pro-Marine Le Pen. She's kicking their ass on the field, so they have to change the rules. They have to cheat to try and cheat her out of potentially becoming the next president of France. And, you know, Hillary Clinton basically ran on the platform of having a vagina. She was a woman. Isn't it interesting that, you know, France has never had a female president, so why isn't everybody supporting Marine Le Pen? Because she has a vagina. I mean, that was enough for Hillary Clinton. We were all told we were misogynist and sexist for not supporting her. Why not Marine Le Pen? Oh, different rules apply because she's not a left-wing establishment figure every single time. And so they're trying to crush dissent. They're trying to crush, censor support for Marine Le Pen in France as areas of Paris burn to the ground as a result of the migrants that they've imported en masse. And speaking of the same subject, the cultural enrichment of Europe, Swedish electricity company pulls out of multicultural Malmo, citing security risk. An electrical maintenance company has announced it can no longer serve customers in the multicultural Swedish city of Malmo, citing security risks and increasing violence. In a message posted on the company's Facebook page, Hogs EL states that it can no longer operate in Malmo due to skyrocketing violence and shootings. Now, just by coincidence, Malmo has a 43% foreign population. Gee, I wonder if there's some kind of connection between riots, explosions, sexual assaults on a regular basis, complete bedlam, unrest, and the fact that areas of Malmo have 90% Muslim migrant population. I'm sure it's just a complete coincidence. Of course, in an interview with Breitbart, Chief Superintendent of Malmo, now retired, Torsten Olofsson, explained how mass immigration has turned some areas of Malmo into mini war zones. He said, quote, Malmo is infamous for explosions, yet thankfully nobody has been killed by the explosions yet. Some of them are just used to frighten people. Again, I've got friends who go to Malmo every other month. They describe these exact scenes, just random explosions going off as you walk down the street, just people throwing grenades. Again, this is the fruit that Europe's sanctuary cities, that cultural enrichment has brought us. Of course, now in Sweden, they're starting finally to rebel against that. We have the Swedish Spring, a top cop going public, pointing out the massive crime surge that has resulted as a result of Sweden opening its doors.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, see, I told you so, that communist Chinese-style net censorship was coming to the web, because it's already here. It's being announced. The way you keep the internet open and free is you get involved more than ever. Go to Infowars.com/app. A new battleship in the fight. Infowars Live, available right now. We're looking for a crew to man it. You gonna sit down and play games and be a trendy? Or are you gonna be part of history? Don't sit by and let the internet and free speech be stolen from you. Take action.